Hey everyone, Steve here with Phantom History. Thanks so much for checking us out on YouTube, and if you enjoy our content, make sure you subscribe. Enjoy this episode. As she toured the old building, Tory and her real estate agent kept an audio recording device running in a bag as they explored. She didn't want to be obvious, but she hoped to catch an electronic voice phenomena, or EVP, to confirm that the building she was interested in buying was actually haunted. But she didn't have to wait until later when she got out of the building to listen to the playback to find proof that spirits were present in this building dating back to 1915. During the tour, Tory, her daughter, her real estate agent, and the seller's real estate agent all heard an indiscernible whisper from somewhere nearby. The seller's agent walked through the building looking for the source of the voices, but returned later when he could find no one else on the property. That's when, Tory said, she knew she wanted to purchase the historic Sleeper Mortuary in Iola, Kansas. I'm Steve Blanchard. Welcome to Phantom History. In 1886, Lyman Sleeper established his Sleeper Mortuary in the small town of Iola, Kansas, located 100 miles from Kansas City in the southeastern part of the state. Lyman Sleeper's son, Alan, became his father's business partner in 1902, the same year a fire devastated the building. A second fire destroyed the building in 1915, the same year that Lyman Sleeper died. When the mortuary reopened, it did so just a few doors down from its original location and operated as a functioning mortuary and funeral parlor until 1999. It's this building that Tory Westhoff has turned into a paranormal research building, inviting investigators and enthusiasts from around the globe to explore the building in search of evidence of the afterlife.
I actually came across this building by accident. It was not, it wasn't really even a planned thing. Now, me looking for a location was a planned thing. That's something I've been doing for probably about the past 5 years or so. I've been actively looking for a location just to have as my own. So Sleeper Mortuary, people think that it's like a play on words, like Sleeper, the dead, but it actually is just an amazing surname. The original building was built in 1886 by Lyman Sleeper. And he was one of the first, if not the first, mortuary in Iola, Kansas. Now, Iola, Kansas is like a little teeny tiny Kansas town. It operated as a funeral home with Lyman Sleeper, and when his sons got old enough, they participated in the family business. Now, an interesting tidbit, back then, a lot of funeral homes were also furniture stores. So it was Sleeper Mortuary and Furniture, or Sleeper's Furniture and Mortuary. And he was actually quite the popular furniture maker back then. People would travel from all over to come and buy his furniture. Now, that was a common thing, and I just kind of speculate that the reason why they were like that was because they made their own coffins.
Tory estimates that through its life, there were nearly 2,700 funerals or wakes in the building since it's opened its doors. And while the building may not have seen the actual death of these individuals, it did witness some emotional life events on both of its floors, which could lead to some residual and intelligent hauntings, Tory suspects. In fact, the previous owner told Tory that there is at least one unidentified and frightening spirit on the second-floor apartment of the building, which is now open to investigators.
The owner did report seeing a shadow figure in the second floor. He said that he saw it on a quite frequent basis. In the mortuary, you had families that lived above the mortuary. So you also have life events, births, deaths, holidays, Christmas, birthdays, anniversaries, all of these big life events. And I mean, that in and of itself, I think also lends to the energetic pull, I guess, so to speak, or whatever you want to call it.
While life events were unfolding on the upper floor of the Sleeper Mortuary building, Very emotional funeral services were happening nearly every day beneath the families who lived there. And just a few years after the second building was constructed in 1915, the Sleepers had an onslaught of funerals to attend to, thanks to the Spanish flu epidemic.
I do know that just shy of 2,700 funerals or lion states have taken place in that building. I do know that with the living, we are energy, right? Everywhere we go, we leave this energetic imprint, if you will. And even though the tragedy didn't happen at the mortuary itself, I feel like there are certain events in life that leave that energetic imprint. We had back in 1918, Iola was hit really hard with the Spanish flu. And there was a lot of funerals that took place at Sleeper Mortuary because of the Spanish flu. A lot of people died. Sometimes more than one member of a single family would have funerals here. And I think that, like, whenever you're having services, that emotional energy that is brought into the building leaves an imprint of some sort. Now, whether that is going to be an intelligent haunting or a residual haunting, I think that that is what we are going to discover.
And the flu epidemic of the early 20th century wasn't the only mass casualty event the Sleeper Mortuary had to contend with. According to Tory, there was a family years after the flu epidemic that faced its own tragedy, which could lead to some of the hauntings of the Sleeper Mortuary.
There was a family, and they lost their only 3 children to scarlet fever in 2 days. And all of those children's funerals were at the Sleeper Mortuary. 11 years later, the father, it was ruled as suicide. Now, my own personal thoughts of like what I read, I don't know that that was necessarily the case, but I mean, that's what they ruled it. He was found hanging with a gunshot wound in his head, but they ruled it as suicide.
There has been a lot of emotions in the building, and a lot of funerals. But is the historic mortuary actually haunted? Tory admits that she doesn't have any hard evidence quite yet to back up that claim. But her instincts and her limited experience in the building so far make her confident that there are spirits lingering there that are just waiting to be discovered. As she searched for a haunted location to open her paranormal research project, Tory would actively investigate locations as she toured them. Her real estate agent, who also happens to be her best friend, also does paranormal investigations. Together, they looked at a half-dozen buildings before deciding that the Sleeper Mortuary was the right haunted location for her.
When we went into the mortuary to do the tour of it, look at it, see if it was something that I wanted, the seller's realtor was also present. So we couldn't really do a whole lot. We had a recorder running in our bag, but it wasn't anything that he was aware of, just to see if we would catch any EVPs on there. But while we were standing there, it was me, my youngest daughter. She was touring with me when we were looking, and my realtor stuff, and then the seller's realtor was on premises, and we were standing there talking. And I heard what I call a scream whisper, and it was no discernible words. It just goes. I looked at my youngest, and then I looked at my realtor, and she's looking at me, and we're like, we all heard this. And then we all look at the seller's realtor to see if he heard it as well, because nobody said anything at this point. He heard it, he acknowledged it, and he turned around and he goes, well, we're the only people in the building. I don't know who would be here. And he turned around and he walked away to go find the source of the talking. But he came back, he's like, I don't know what it was. It must have been a cat or something. Like, I don't know what it was. And we just kind of went on about our day. Like, we just went on with the tour and we were looking at stuff. But that is the first experience that I've had in there, and the only one thus far.
Tory opened the doors to paranormal investigation groups in January of 2025, and it is her hope that with each investigation, more of the puzzle of the mortuary's history and its inhabitants will come into focus. She has done meticulous research so far into the history of the building, and said she plans to do several live broadcasts from the mortuary over the next year in a hope to collect evidence to share on social media and on her website. Her biggest goal, other than finding and documenting paranormal activity, is to respect the dead who she suspects are still connected to the building, which, interestingly, still resembles a funeral home on the first floor, despite a short period of time as a retail space.
On the first floor is where all of the funeral home stuff took place. On the second floor, it is like a home. It's a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom home with a full kitchen, living room, all of those things. I do know that, at least in the early 2000s, mid 90s, the funeral directors would live above their mortuaries so that when a hospital called or the police department called and they had to go and pick up a body, that they would just go downstairs, get in their hearse, go and pick them up and bring them back. And it was more of a convenience thing, I would imagine. But the first floor, there's 2 sets of doors. You have like a double door and then a single door. The double doors, when you walk in, is kind of like a little entryway. And you have a door directly in front of you. You have a door to your right and a door to your left. So if you go directly in front of you, it's a long hallway. And that runs directly next to the chapel area. If you go to the right, you enter into the chapel area. It is very long. It's not as wide as it is long. And there's doors along the side where I imagine that like people would walk down to do the viewing, and then they would hit the door at the end and then go back down that little hallway to come back around and sit down. If you went to the left, it was kind of like an office area, and it has a beautiful set of spiral staircase that goes up to the second floor from that area as well. They also was like a showroom for like their caskets and stuff. So like when you were trying to plan services and things like that, you could go into this room and, pick your caskets and stuff. And in that same room, you also had like a stairway that goes up. And that's where they would do all of their flower arrangements for their funerals. So they did it all in-house. Now, the embalming room is still intact. It is off of kind of like the garage area.
The layout of the building remains, and Tory plans to leave it mostly untouched to not only give it the authentic feel of the former mortuary, but to give the spirits that are there at least some form of familiarity with their surroundings. She knows that new technology will be something with which the ghosts of Sleeper Mortuary will be unfamiliar, so she's hoping to approach them with as much respect as possible.
I also feel like the dead, they want to talk too. I feel like even on the other side, there's things that like we're curious about them. We have all of these questions, and maybe they have all of the same ones. Back in 1886, they didn't have MacBooks. Like maybe they have questions. Yeah, I do think that it's going to spark interaction because they're going to be like, oh gosh, somebody wants to talk to me. Somebody's curious about me. And I have so much to say because I've been dead for 100 years and I have a lot to say.
And what they do choose to say, Tory says, will be shared on her website and her social media pages to help capture even more of the building's haunted history. But more importantly, upcoming investigations will highlight the lives of those who came before us and provide some closure, of sorts, to the residents of Iola, Kansas who have been gone for more than a century.
Memorializing the dead is a huge thing for me. I believe that we are all important and we all leave legacies, no matter how big or small. And it's just always been something that's been kind of the forefront of everything that I do.
The Sleeper Mortuary, as far as Tory knows, has never been fully investigated by a paranormal team. Its secrets, its legacies, and some of its hidden stories are ripe for discovery, she believes. And the anticipation and the unknown ahead of her as she prepares to open the mortuary's doors to the public is the most exciting part.
This building has never been investigated by paranormal investigators. It's never been subject to just people coming in and trying to talk to ghosts. So it makes me wonder how often spirits reach out to us and we're just not aware that that's what they're doing.
Venturing a guess as to what spirits are lying in wait for Tory and for the paranormal teams already signed up to investigate the mortuary are anyone's guess. But the building's historic nature and its enduring legacy in the town of Iola, Kansas, leads Tory to believe that one spirit in particular is patiently waiting and ready to communicate.
If I had to guess who would be in the building, I think Lyman Sleeper 1000%.
This episode of Phantom History was written, produced, and edited by me, Steve Blanchard, right here at the Phantom History House Bed and Breakfast in Tampa, Florida. To learn more about the podcast and the paranormal-themed B&B, visit phantomhistoryhouse.com. Thank you to Tory Westhoff for taking time to chat with me about the historic and haunted Sleeper Mortuary in Iola, Kansas. You can learn more about the mortuary or book your own investigation there through her website, sleepermortuary.weebly.com, or by following Sleeper Mortuary on TikTok. Music for this episode was provided by Shane Ivers, Chad Crouch, and Purple Planet Music. Please follow Phantom History on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and YouTube, and join us for our weekly Facebook Live show, Phantom History House Calls, where we chat with fascinating individuals from throughout the paranormal community every Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. And, as always, thanks for listening. Hey, thanks so much for watching that. And remember, if you go to phantomhistory.com, you can sign up for our newsletter where you will be alerted when we have a new podcast that drops, and also information about other events.